everyone. Welcome to the Craft Beer Professionals Virtual Con. We are here from Stout Tanks and Kettles. I'm Mike Paladino. I have a few years of brewing experience, close to about 16, and I've been at Stout Tanks and Kettles for about 3.5 years, almost four now. Started in January of 2018 after years of brewing and opening up some breweries, and now helping out brewers find out whether they want to open a brewery, expand a brewery, or what kind of offerings that we have to help them here at Stout Tanks. We're excited here. We're going to kind of focus a lot on putting the our presentation today is about putting the pilot back into your brewery, or maybe for some of you starting, with the pilot. So Don is a fellow brewer here working at Stout. So let Don, you can introduce yourself and kind of tell a little bit more about what we're going to do.
Yeah, very similar to Mike's situation. After about a decade of brewing, made my way over to the equipment front. I've been working with Stout ever since, past 3.5 years or so. And yeah, it's been a great journey to be able to assist people as they're getting their systems together. And this is a great topic to be talking about. It gives us an opportunity to talk about some of the equipment that we have, but even beyond that, just some of the ideas behind pilot brewing, and also just kind of take you through some of the inception of our company was starting at this level. Our former brewer and owner, John Watt, he started off by doing smaller tanks that had professional features. So a lot of this has gone and grown into much larger and larger vessels, and now we're capable of doing 30-barrel brew houses and up to 200-barrel tanks. But when I look at the pilot, I look a lot back at our origin story, and the nice part is that it's taken some of that that we've brought to the larger equipment and brought it back down to a nice package for everyone with the hard piping and some of the features to really dial in recipes. So with that, I think maybe we'll take a look at the next slide. But the Pilot Pro was a big hit at CBC this year, and plan on having it there in Minneapolis as well, I think, from the responses that we got from people. So
yeah, I mean, some of the things that were great success and things that we're going to talk about. You can see some of the topics here. Is the ability for a lot of our brewers that have larger breweries, putting back some of the smaller batches so that they can kind of look at being relevant around doing some more flexible in the market, smaller financial risks, and being able to kind of scale the recipes. Some of the brewers look at the fact that they don't have a pilot, so they don't have this opportunity. I think what we're going to do is hopefully give some of the brewers to some ammo to talk to their management, the ownership, try to get them to get on board with why this is important to really have a pilot system in your brewery. Don, I mean, I know you can probably testify about how busy you end up getting in a fast moving production brewery.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and making a point for putting that time aside. We had a 1-barrel pilot system that we just didn't have the capability to really work with on a regular basis, and that then forced us to really be in a position of doing test batching at a single batch size. So sometimes our one-offs were 20 barrels. So you'd have to use a lot of knowledge in order to be able to do that and win the game more times than losing the game. We definitely, I think, towards the tail end of my time at the brewery, started bringing some of that pilot back in, getting more people in the brewery, especially as the brewery grows. You have more people from different backgrounds, and you want to make sure that you're utilizing all of the creativity and the knowledge that they bring to your brewery in a way so that you can capitalize on perhaps the next big recipe. You never know.
Yep, exactly. So let's move on to the next little picture we have here for you guys. Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing that I think a lot of brewers, on especially larger breweries or fast-moving breweries, is sometimes there's a lack of creativity, or there's a lack of maybe inspiration because they're just moving so fast. Having a smaller pilot brewery allows you to have some of these options. Here we have one that is depends on really what the right size pilot is for you as well. It doesn't have to be a one barrel brewery. And that's something that I think a lot of brewers maybe need to look at. I mean, Don, like you said, 20 barrel system. I was kind of primarily on about a 15 barrel system, so those were my test batches at the time. You know, uh, you want to go take it from here for that?
Yeah. I mean, when people think of the pilot, there's a lot of different ways people look at it. Some people say, well, I'm planning on having a 15 barrel system, so I need a 5 barrel pilot because I'm just going to take my recipes and bring them up 3 times. Well, it's that is not necessarily a linear thing. So when it comes to taking a look at the pilot, you don't necessarily need to have a multiple of the size that you're working in. You just have to have the working knowledge and capability. But each brewery is going to fit a different pilot setup. I think the 1 barrel works nice, and that's why we've done it because it's approachable, and it's an easy small footprint, and when you're doing the math and whatnot, it's pretty easy to take things and scale them up as needed. But the other thing is the financial concern. When you're looking at it, small batches that inspire the new products, those are going to sometimes require ingredients that are costly. Taking a chance on something and not breaking the bank is always a good thing. Having that properly sized pilot system doesn't necessarily mean, like I said, that it's multiples. Perhaps that pilot system is located elsewhere. More and more people have satellite facilities that are mostly fed by an existing pub or an existing brewery, and they just have a system that they want to be able to have fun on. And I think that's the important part is keeping it fun. I mean, one of the best things that you experience as a brewer is the excitement of doing something new versus having to brew the same beer over and over again. So I think keeping it fun is probably one of the most key aspects of it. But also having a little bit of organization, led from the top down, and but bolstering the creativity of your staff.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. The creativity, the inspiration, creating new products is what really the brewers want to do, and I think the craft beer drinkers are looking for that. So you have to create new products. You have to be able to do things. Having your team inspired to do that, I think, is one of the best byproducts of having a pilot brewery. It's almost like something that it's just a result of having that. So very, very good for the brewery staff, very good for the morale of everybody at the brewery itself.
Yeah, and when you're not actively brewing, you can work on the painting behind the
exactly. There you
go.
All right. Flexibility, that's definitely something that we see with the smaller systems. Test batches. There is more ability to experiment. There's more ability to create some things that you wouldn't do on a larger scale. And you're able to, honestly adapt a little bit, more so. So, I think larger breweries tend to, have sometimes of course, the advantage financially of scale. They're doing similar things that take, same amount of time but larger volumes. So having flexibility, and even if it's, something where you're looking at, coming off and saying, what are we going to do for the next year ahead? That flexibility. Our Pilot Pro is designed so that it's mobile, as you can see there. It has some wheels, caster, so you can kind of shift it around the brewery. If you can put quick disconnects or move things on your supply lines, it becomes something that is easy, and you're able to do it. Having a square frame is really nice because larger breweries can stick their forklifts under there, lift it up, maybe stick it on top of their walk-in cooler, or get it out of the way on pallet racking or anything. When the time is right, they can pull it out. Don, you want to kind of hit on some of those other points or anything I missed there?
Yeah. I mean, for us, then one of the nice things is this is the smallest area with which we offer the front manway door on the mash tun, which is nice. We have a couple upgrades for wedge wire false bottom that we can do on there. In addition, you have the Herms coil in there so that step mashing is possible. So you're not going to necessarily mimic steam perfectly, but if you do want to work on something like this, you can simulate some of the steps that you could have in a steam system. Also, some of the advanced controls in there are going to link into flow meter, usage of water, and once again, the hard piping, just pre-established pathways. That being said, there are areas for tri-clamps where you could go in and actually modify if you desired to. So it's nice for cleaning. If you ever wanted to tear the whole thing apart, you're capable of getting in there with a scrub brush to hit all the different parts. But definitely a nice unit. I think our offering for the pilot started a couple years ago, and we've seen some good activity on it. I think as more and more breweries come out and the competition increases, I believe that there's going to be a need for more pilot in the brewery, because obviously customers' palates are going to keep changing. You're going to see it. You're going to find that some of the recipes that are out there are going to be dated. At one point it was the heavily bitter West Coast IPA, and then all of a sudden it became the fruity East Coast IPA, and I think you're going to see a lot of things changing over the course of time, and having that equipment there is going to help you capitalize on it. So.
Sure, exactly. One of the things I think you did hit on was, laughing at the fact that there's, I see some of our competitors, they have very long, mile-long, curvy, one-piece stainless pipes. Those are honestly, in my experience, horrible to as a brewer usage when you're kind of looking at being able to visually check or just wanting to change something, because when I started brewing in 2002 professionally, and really what's going on now is it varies. So the same way as our consumer palate varies, the brewer has to be adaptable, and they have to be able to change and adapt on that and offer those things. So the only way you're going to do that is with experimentation, and stuff like that, trying new things. So having some hard piping that has more break points and more tri-clamp connections so that you can actually pull a T, redirect, try your own thing. And then there is a lot of flexibility in our designs, because we know as brewers that there's always going to be some innovation coming, that we haven't even thought about yet, whether that's 5 months from now or 15 years from now. That the adaptability, the flexibility of our designs allows brewers, I think, to really take advantage of that. Putting in new special beers, flexibility of with your lineup itself is something as well. Having the ability to do that. You can't do that if you're looking at maybe only large scale brewing all the time. How do you throw some of those one-offs in there? The flexibility of having a pilot also gives you the opportunity to look at how you test your standard beers. Can you take some of your standard beers and kind of just tweak them a little bit? Can you make those a little bit more where you offer more than one style with one brew? And so those are some of the things I think with flexibility of having a pilot that some are overlooked on. A lot of times it comes down to, can we fit this in our budget? The budget usually has to have some type of, product development, quality control, testing, and other things that come into market. Flexibility with a pilot system allows you to kind of go do those things on a scale that's not going to, break the bank. So let me see about the next one we have here. All right, cool. Consistency again. I think that's something that with a test pilot system, that's how you can get your team up to have better brewing knowledge. The staff itself is going to be a stronger staff when you have a pilot system. The beer, the consistency of your product, of course, is going to most likely be a better consistent product. Some of the downsides of that I had in my career was not having a pilot system. So there was at some points less creativity. I think that's where once you kind of look at that and you have a pilot, you have options regarding those things. Don, I know you're the school of brewing that you came from. It was all about consistency, all about keeping those numbers, all about testing and really kind of improving your product and improving the knowledge of the staff around you, so that there is a point so that you can move on as maybe an assistant brewer up to a brewer, a brewer up to a director of brewing operations, some of those things. And you can't do that without consistency.
Right.
Yeah.
And seeing some of the pictures next over there, obviously when we're talking about professional design, that once again we started with some smaller vessels because our brewer owner found that a lot of the equipment out there did not have the professional features that he wanted. So bringing those in at a smaller level, and never getting complacent. Even now, some of the things that we learn on our larger systems, we translate to our smaller systems as well. We've started to improve our offerings. Some of the things that perhaps maybe we started off with, now we, for instance, our 3-barrel mash tun, we still have a kind of a budget entry level perforated bottom, but now we also have a kind of an upgraded, milled or wedge wire false bottom that we offer. We've also taken some of those vessels and increased the height for easier grain out. But in the end, a lot of people got started with some of the equipment that we brought onto the market, and we still have those as an offering for those who are budget sensitive. But we are continuously taking innovations from the larger systems and bringing them to the smaller systems. So yeah, professional design, using the right tools, for any particular brewer, that could be software. There's numerous software programs out there to help you scale your recipes up. For some brewers, it's going to be just utilizing the good old fashioned math, building a spreadsheet utilizing math equations from brewing texts. There's a lot of education out there now that wasn't there before. I mean, I was fortunate to be part of the American Brewers Guild, do some work at Siebel. But when it comes down to it, today there's a lot more opportunities, even on the local front, for community colleges that are offering brewing programs, fermentation programs. And I think for anyone who wants to be successful, taking a step towards that is probably going to be key. Teaching consistency. This is part of any brewer as they start to go along on their brewer's journey. As you get later in your career, you find that you are mentoring. You are having to take that next generation and kind of show them how not only you were taught, but the things that you learned that improved how you were taught. And the only way that's going to happen is by taking the time. And I've seen it firsthand as, you start with like only a handful of people and everybody's so busy that they're just doing whatever they can to keep up. But as the business grows, you start to get more hands on deck. You start to feel a little bit of a release of some of the pressure on what you're doing. And then you can carve out the time for something like a pilot program where perhaps you can actually take some time and get everybody scheduled to be off and have their input heard and have the opportunity to learn, even if it's just taking one senior brewer and having them work once a month with an alternating person from your brewery. I mean, it could be anyone. It could be the person who's washing kegs who just happens to be a great home brewer, or it could be somebody on the canning line. But you just never know where that opportunity is really going to pay off. And some of those people may have something to contribute that you just don't know.
Yeah, I mean, you can, and it's not just the brewing staff, I think, as well. I mean, improve your whole the people who are making the product, making the beers, and whatnot. But there's also things where you can kind of pull in your hostess, your busboy, any of the people who are working in the brewery. Some of
Mhm.
those people can, have a little bit more knowledge if you have the time to, pull them in where they're not in the way of your larger, scaling, full scale system, improving their knowledge along there. It proves the consistency of your product overall and the brand image that kind of comes with it. That's part of it. The not the product itself, but the image that you're also kind of portraying. Is your staff knowledgeable? Do they, when they come in, is it consistent from staff to staff how they can actually help guide somebody maybe through the lineup on your beer menu? Some of those things kind of come down to the consistent product of the beer or the consistent product of the knowledge of the staff as well. Uh,
Yeah,
there,
and you never know when you're going to need to fill a tap line.
yeah,
You can have tons of tap lines and always find yourself having one that's empty that you want to fill with something. Making it fun for people. Example, I was fortunate enough when my son was born, they said, well, just write a recipe and we'll brew it. And I was like, okay. So, you know, special occasions for your employees where maybe you can utilize that. I think it also, in this day and age of attrition, is important to it's an easy way to let them know that they're appreciated
yep,
and that their information is valuable. And I think it's going to be something you probably see a lot of the better breweries doing is making their employees know that they're appreciated. So,
sure. I think sometimes you get somebody who even the question, I was the why, the person, the whole kid who asked the reason why. So when you have that person on your staff who asks why we do something, that this is where you can kind of go back and maybe take some time, show them this is why we do this. That's why we are consistent, in our product. And so some of those things are a lot easier to kind of like break down, show on a smaller scale, so that it does make sense when it gets up to maybe a little bit more, maybe a more automated, larger system or whatnot as well. So, yeah, I think the consistency, we've kind of hit that one. So let's move on to the next one here and see if I can get my cursor to move. Okay, perfect. There's also, we kind of brushed on some of these things as well earlier. The financial risk is usually less involved when you have these smaller batches. You see that first one: experiment, experiment, experiment. Those who take risk, those who are willing to kind of put a little bit of money into their pilot program. Those are the ones who are coming out with exciting new beers. The ones that are coming out with exciting new beers all the time, they have to have a pilot system. There's no doubt about it. I think those are, I believe that's right, that those are Ken Grossman's 2 barrel tanks over there from Sierra Nevada. Even somebody like Ken over at Sierra, he still sees the need to keep investing into his pilot program, looking at new ways or new techniques, or having different sizes so that he can test these maybe in different sizes. You don't want to be the brewer who says, "Oh, it's too costly to put a pilot program," and then your brand kind of starts to get a little bit stale. What's selling right now? What are the things that are moving? It's the new one-offs all the time, constantly rotating those in and out. You can't do, you can, but there is more financial risk if you are running without a pilot and you're running on maybe a 10, 20 or larger even system, even sevens and stuff like that. There could be more financial risk involved in that if you're not, maybe skilled right, or you're not sure what that outcome of that new ingredient that you're trying to use. How much lychee or whatever do we need to use? How much cinnamon sticks or how much of this? That you can do this. The opportunities are going to be there for you in regards to that. And I think one of the parts hopefully we can give our brewing, our fellow brewers out here is take some of these notes, take some of this information, and go to your management, go to some of your ownership if there is pushback about that, and you say, hey, why are we losing some market share right now? Well, I don't know, because we haven't put out any new stuff. Why are we losing market over here? Maybe those new breweries are just putting out all the time new products. how you have to be able to kind of keep up. If it's something that can fit into your budget, pilot breweries are surprisingly, if you've already, especially if you've already got your brewery up and running, most of the time you have a lot of the core things that we can pillage off of, and maybe just have maybe we can pull you don't have to get a new glycol system. You're pulling off that glycol system. You don't need maybe a new grinder, or whatnot. We don't want to use mill. It's a dangerous word in its industry, but use your malt cracker, your malt grinder, from your larger system if you can. And those things. And Don, I know you guys had like a robust QA program and whatnot, and that's all about innovation. And I know it becomes a conversation with finances.
Yeah, yeah, and I would say one of the other things is in the day of age of collaborations, there are millions of different organizations that as a brewer you probably get involved with because part of being a craft brewer is being part of the community and perhaps maybe having that smaller system that you can take a chance on a recipe with some strange ingredients. I mean, I've used some really weird things in beer, but I think that was part of the fun. You never knew, but if you have the smaller system, you can definitely avoid breaking the bank with it, and you can also easily get a quick photo op with a bunch of people from an organization with either the large system or the smaller system behind them. It's still, in some ways, people actually kind of think that the smaller system's cuter, and they're like, "Please take my picture in front of this," So it's just kind of fun. I think that once again, though, you never know who you're going to be working with. I mean, we've done oyster stouts with Pacific Seafood and all sorts of different things that perhaps you bring in ingredients when the fruit craze was going on. I learned about fruits that I don't think I even knew existed, and that was kind of part of the fun. You get these new flavors, and I guess in addition to that, you're able to get these initial batches out, and then perhaps you don't necessarily have to release them to the public. You can have yourself a good valued panel of people that you trust their palates. It's very important to have a good taste panel available for your brewery, and that goes beyond even this pilots discussion. I think it's important to see how your product holds up over the course of time, and to really have those people at your the capability of utilizing those people, because one of the things is, if you think your product is doing one thing and it's doing something else, that could be a whole wake-up call to what's happening here. So, but anyway, I digress. We're going to get back to pilot talk.
We'll get down to the next one there. I know it's tough. We're passionate. We kind of get going on the whole big picture there, but scaling new recipes quickly. This is something that can how do you want to be? You want to be out. You want to get to the market as fast as you can. You want to get your testing. You want to see what it's like. You don't want to, argue with your management or your brewing staff about like how much is it going to cost for this test of 30 barrels or 60 barrels or 15 barrels or whatever you're looking at. So you can do a few of these small scale on the pilot. Which one works right? We did one with the higher gravity, one with the lower gravity, one with this yeast, one with that yeast. All the different types of things that you may have ideas of your staff. Test, experiment. Get those things, get those one-offs. The one-offs are what sells most right now. I mean, when I walk into a brewery, I'm usually asking, "Hey, what do you have right now on what's your seasonals?" Those are the things that people want to, craft beer drinkers, aficionados, or are excited about. So I think the test pilot system allows you to have some of these opportunities. Say you can get your proven results. If they work really well, then you can scale them up and do them on your larger batches and say, "Yep, this was worth those tests. This was worth throwing in an absorbent amount of cinnamon and then way back and then finding out which one was the right amount of cinnamon or whatever that ingredient that you're using or that new product that you're trying to put out on the market." I mean, it's about relevancy. I think Don sees that as being as much as anybody. You guys had so many products that you were constantly putting out. I was always so impressed. There's breweries that are really good about doing that, and I always, when I look back and I talk to those breweries, I talk to those brewmasters, or I talk to some of the people on the staff. They're excited. They say, "Oh yeah, we have days where we bring the whole staff in and we start brainstorming, and then we put it together, and then we do some testing, or like you said, maybe it's a special occasion, a wedding, an anniversary, a childbirth, or something like that. You can bring the staff in, you can play around, and those are where those brainstorming ideas happen. If it works right, if all of a sudden all the everything aligns and you're like, this is phenomenal, then you can take that and you can scale that up. You can get that to the market faster. And sometimes those are some of those hidden jewels that happen even just on a day where maybe it wasn't even supposed to be about like brewing something new. Somebody just happened to be in the group that asked the question. Somebody, "Oh, I don't know about the brewing process. What if you added this?" So some of those, wonky ideas that somebody has that triggers, like, a brewer's like, huh, yeah, what if we did that? Those things can happen quickly when you have pilot systems.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've seen it thrive with a pilot system. When you have a pilot system going, you're capable, once again, of getting those recipes perfected quicker. Like I said at the beginning of my career, our one-offs were full batch size. And when you have full batch size, then you got to wait for it to be consumed before you brew another one. And sometimes that's just going to add to the timeline a lot. So having the smaller batch sizes allows for you to get those moving a lot quicker. And then just having enough small fermenters is important as well, just to kind of, have them keep going. You have, somebody might be doing a lager one. It might tie it up for 5 weeks. You don't want to stop innovation because you only have one single fermenter to do your experiments on. So, I suggest at least a couple, bare minimum. Definitely having two is better than one. And that aspect allow you to keep things moving along. But yeah.
The part that I think is, what's really relevant, today, it's when you walk into a place, it's like finding something new on the menu. If you've been in there, it was 2 months ago, and it's the same stuff. You tend to be like, okay, well, I'm not, maybe go to somewhere else. So you want to keep those people really coming back, whether it's inside your tap room or whether it's something that they're pulling off the shelf if you're a package more heavy brewery. And that, again, it's hard to do that without some type of pilot program where you can have the ability to take some of these things, get them to the market as fast as you can. If it's a new idea, you want to be the first one. You don't want to be the person who is like the last in line, because then it looks like you're just kind of riding a wave that somebody else has already done. And so I think there's a lot that we've kind of spoke on, but again, it's like getting your product to the market quick. If it's something that you have an idea on, if it's unique, you really do want to be on the front end of that wave.
Yeah, and at the bare minimum, I think even if budget wise a pilot is prohibitive to you right now, I feel like an important factor would be at least having a small fermentation vessel that you could divert wort to from existing recipes and perhaps improve those recipes. So don't think that it has to be a huge cash out to get some sort of a program going. Sometimes it's incremental. You don't come in for the buffet. You kind of pick at what you can, and if it's just getting a small fermenting vessel of any type, something sanitary. If you can tie it into glycol, great. If you can't, make sure you have some sort of temperature control, and just go from there. That's it. I think a lot of it is the will to have a pilot system, and eventually the money comes to afford one. If you don't necessarily have it,
Sure.
You just have to run those numbers. You have to get that return on investment, and most people are going to see that it's a well worthy cause.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, I mean, recapping, again, the market is changing. How are people going to be really adapting to the market? We really want, as brewers, we want to be competitive with our fellow brewers. We want to be our brands to be ones that are recognizable. I think we want to stay relevant. All these kind of marketing points here for your brand to be noticed. Um, for your staff, to be the part of the staff to have some exciting, inspiration and creativity behind what they want to do. If we look at the way the job market is right now, I think keeping your staff inspired is very relevant. Besides having, new beers, having your staff there, having consistent staff, having like the ability to really, your staff to know what's going on. They see the market changing. They can inform you on what's really going on. They can tell you what they see out when they went out to a bar and they said, man, this beer was amazing. How do we get this and put something similar but put our own spin on it in our brewery? Well, if you're on a large brewery, that's going to have to probably be something where you put on your pilot to see if it works for you
Yeah.
in there.
I don't think I could have said any better than you, Mike. I think what we might want to do is move along if anyone has any questions.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if
that.
there's anyone out here that has some questions for comment side here. The other part is Don and I are very available here at Stout. Or the two of us kind of work mainly on things for the systems themselves. Is what we're kind of the two of us kind of mainly focus on systems. You have larger systems, pilot systems. If you tend to be like expanding your cellar or whatnot, we help you there as well. We have a pretty large brewery staff knowledge. Everyone here has really had professional brewing experience, so there's not anyone on the phone who really kind of, when they answer, that couldn't help you out. Um, we have a lot of brewers will kind of come in, and I think I don't see any questions coming right now. I think Don may have dropped off accidentally, but a lot of our brewers tend to look again at looking back and saying, why do I need a pilot brewery? And it really comes back to say, why don't you need a pilot brewery? Is when I ask them. I said, I mean, you really have to have something. We see the selection on the shelves. It's constantly changing the selection on the shelf. So what do we want to do? We want to be relevant. We want to have our brand out there. The equipment, that you want something that's reliable. You want it to be sturdy and really stand the test of time. If there's something where you're, you know, uh, back in the screen, when there's something that you're looking at and saying, how do we make this really happen? Then you're not going to be able to do that without your pilot system. Hey, Don's back.
Sorry about that, everyone. I was trying to look at if there were any questions offhand, and I'm going to leave that to Mike. That way I don't accidentally log myself out.
Yeah, no, I didn't see any questions, but I think, just kind of recapping a little bit on, really why people want it. And I kind of said, why don't you want a brewery is a better question. You want to be relevant. You want to have your staff excited. I think, why don't you kind of, hit maybe on some of those other reasons we may have like either gone over, like, another one that is, maybe something we haven't covered.
Yeah, I mean, it's all about consistency. That goes beyond pilot. That's, when I was in the Brewers Guild, one of the lines that made me, I remember the most is no matter what you do it consistently, because you're going to have a beer that someone's going to like and someone's not. But if it's all over the place, then it's unpredictable. No one's going to drink it,
Yeah.
So having that consistency, having the right tools that you need, having the right inspiration from your veteran brewers is important.
Mm-hmm.
And then just, the cost. The cost is, the equipment initially, but also, utilizing strange and interesting ingredients. Sometimes they're going to be a hit. Yep. Sometimes they might not. But, you just have to kind of roll with it. And
on that, there is one question that popped up here. It says, what size pilot system do you offer? Is one size better than another? You want to hit that, Don?
Sure. I would say, for the sake of what we've been showing, we've been talking about our Pilot Pro, which is a 1-barrel system. And 1 barrel is nice. It's very capable of being scaled up. The math is easy utilizing that. But at the same time, it's kind of what I tell people. There's no one way to do a brewery. That size pilot may not be adequate for your brewery. And just because a system is of a particular size doesn't necessarily make it a pilot. I mean, I've been at AC Golden over out at Coors, and their pilot system is a 15-barrel system. So as you saw in the picture earlier, there was a 5-barrel pilot system for one of our breweries. So even right now, I'm quoting people on, some people that have 100-barrel systems that want a 10-barrel pilot. Mm-hmm. It's just it's particular to your brewery and your needs. And when you're determining your pilot, it's almost as important as determining the system that you're brewing on initially. It's all based off of wise decision making and proper planning. Yep. So I always tell people to look at their business plan when we figure out what system you're looking at. Your pilot should be a part of your business plan, especially if you're looking to have good growth along the way. And for those people that it's something coming in after the fact, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's a negative. It just means that once again, you have to take your data and go back to the beginning and say, okay, what am I going to get out of this system? Because if you're never going to use it, then don't buy it. Sure. If it's going to get actively used, then be happy to make the investment.
Yeah. I think there's probably a few more questions out there. I see another one, saying a lot of different price points. The quality does matter. I think our systems, I can speak for ours. There's no NPT threaded fittings. They're touching product. They're all stainless TC fittings. With good quality welds and whatnot. So the quality does matter, especially if it's about your brand. It's hard to sacrifice those things. Don and I are, and the rest of the staff here at Stout are, say readily available. You can, hit us up on our phone calls. We love phone calls. We got some video links and whatnot that you can set up some video meetings. Or if you want to just do some emails, shoot an email to us. You can go to our website and request, a pilot system quote or a full system quote, or if you're just looking for tanks or small parts, you can kind of hit us up on our website. I know if we have too much more, there's about, I think, 45 seconds left or so in our presentation here. But again, been pleasure to talk to everybody here who's been listening. I know that there's a lot of craft beer and craft beverage really moving. We're excited to be a part of the Craft Beer Professionals group, and the people who have joined us here today. We want to thank you very much.
Yeah, it's been a true pleasure to talk to all of you. I want to just thank CBP for having us, and keep the passion in what you're doing. Keep the excitement. Think about bringing that pilot into your system, and I hope that if you do, you're happy to give me a call. I'm happy to talk to you. So
excellent.
All right.
Thanks, everyone.
Take care.
Cheers.